Donald Trump was finally confronted about his Springfield, Ohio lies. Something that originally he espoused at the presidential debate, obviously went very viral, but to me is of course about the people's lives that are impacted by him saying that, the bomb threats that ended up happening and the school closures and all this, but also representative of sort of Trump's way of doing politics. Pick a provocative, sometimes fabricated, in this case fabricated, example, use it to fearmonger and use it to distract from your policy failures or lack of policy proposals. So Trump's holding, and we'll probably talk about more moments from this if this video doesn't get attacked by Univision. In the past, we've had some issues. I'm going to risk it for the biscuit on this, and we'll see if we're allowed to. If you're going to do a town hall with a presidential candidate, you got to not go flag people and sometimes block people's videos for covering clips from it. It's sort of a public service, I feel like. But here you have an individual who says he's a registered Republican confronting Trump about Trump lying about cats and dogs being eaten by Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. And I'll show you Trump's response. But what I find really interesting is this is a Univision town hall. And I'll show you another really serious question. What I guess you'd categorize as a tough, emotionally tough, if nothing else, question that was asked to Kamala Harris in her Univision town hall. And let's compare how the two people handle these sorts of conversations.
Soy un republicano.
And by the way, of course, please do click that subscribe button. If you'd be so kind, we are trying our very best to, before the election, get to 1 million subscribers. And I appreciate each and every one of you who've already subscribed.
Soy un republicano, registrado republicano, pero en este momento me encuentro indeciso.
Good evening, Mr. President. I am a Republican. I am a registered Republican, but at this time I am undecided.
Durante la campaña se han utilizado muchas teorías de conspiración.
During the campaign, there has been some conspiracy theories in use.
Le doy un ejemplo si me permite.
If you allow me, I would like to give you an example of it.
Las
By the way, Trump looks ill. This is a disaster. Look at him. Wow.
autoridades de Springfield, Ohio, han aclarado una y otra vez que los haitianos no se están comiendo los perros ni los gatos de sus gentes.
The authorities in Springfield, Ohio have more than one time clarified that the Haitians are not eating their cats and their dogs.
Sin embargo, usted les quiere revocar su permiso que tienen para residir legalmente en este país.
Nonetheless, you want to revoke the permit they have to legally reside in this country.
Mi pregunta con todo respeto es si usted verdaderamente cree que estas personas se comen las mascotas de la gente.
My question to you very respectfully is, do you really believe that these people are eating the people's pets?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And this was just reported. I was just saying what was reported. That's been reported. And eating other things, too, that they're not supposed to be. But this is, all I do is report. I have not, I was there, I'm going to be there, and we're going to take a look, and I'll give you a full report when I do. But that's been in the newspapers and reported pretty broadly. I will say this as far as Springfield is concerned, because I do know that situation. You have a city of 52,000 people, and they've added almost 30,000 migrants into the city.
Yeah, and you've heard this whole Springfield bit from him, so I don't think I have to show you. But he goes on to talk about, and there's no resources and everything's terrible. And I didn't even necessarily know this up until I quickly fact-checked him. He's not even right about the number that he'll fearmonger about of Haitians living in Springfield, Ohio, by a long shot. The exact number now, of course, I'm blanking on it, but I think we're talking about around 10,000. But in addition to that exaggeration, you also have a fundamental lie about two key things. The first being that these are even, as they will call them, illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. That's not true. They do have legal status temporary protective status. And so that's number one. Number two, they're not doing the things that people are accusing them of. And number three, they're just being productive members of the town. And so what Trump is doing is choosing even people who are here legally. I'm just going to say they've ruined, they've wrecked, they've destroyed. Now, as a town grows, and if there's a building Haitian population in this area, as is the case with any population growth, if that then causes resource strains or infrastructure strains or schooling strains, of course you address those problems. Of course. But that's not justification for Trump saying, and now they've ruined, and now everyone wants to leave, and it's terrible, it's disgusting, as he says. That's just fear-mongering. He's just scapegoating instead of being more comprehensive and thoughtful in his policy discussions. And there were threats to geese. Do you know who was threatening them? It was a white guy. There was a story about, in Springfield, a goose being illegally taken and potentially eaten, at least killed. And it was a white dude who wasn't a Haitian. So, completely wrong about that. And finally, if you're trusting him, MAGA, to be your source of truth, the mainstream media, they all lie. Liberals, they all lie. Fake news. And so Trump has to be your ultimate source of truth. And then he says, I can tell you all about Springfield. I know about that situation. But then his answer when he's called out on complete fabrications is to say, oh, I don't know. I just freaking say stuff. I have no clue. Because it wasn't reported in newspapers. It was reported by the likes of Laura Loomer, okay? Not credible newspapers being reported. So him saying, I just come to you and I just bleh, which is kind of what he was saying, should not give you peace of mind. That's one way that you can handle to not answer with substantive policy, to just fearmonger, to just scapegoat, exaggerate, fabricate, lie, or you can handle a Univision town hall question about immigration specifically very differently.
Nuestra siguiente pregunta es Yvette Castillo de Las Vegas.
Yvette Castillo
She wants to
Las
share a
Vegas.
personal story, Madam Vice President.
Hi. Buenas noches, Vicepresidenta.
Good evening,
Harris.
Madam Vice
Usted
President
y yo
Harris.
tenemos algo en común. You and I have something in common. We both lost our mother.
Oh.
And I'm an American citizen, born to Mexican parents. They were here before I was even born. They've worked their whole lives. But with the way immigration laws change over time, I was only able to help my dad get his legal status squared away, but not my mom's. My mom passed away just 6 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And she was never, ever able to get the type of care and service that she needed or deserved. Sorry.
Take your time. Take your time.
So my question for you is, what are your plans, or do you have plans to support that subgroup of immigrants who have been here their whole lives, or most of them, and have to live and die in the shadows?
I'm so sorry for you.
Thank you.
You must remember your mother as she lived.
Mm-hmm.
I have enough of a feeling about your strength that it probably comes from her to know she would want you to remember her as she lived and not as she died, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's take it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents were here for years, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And your father was able to earn his pathway to citizenship, but your mother was not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to assume it's because part of the problem is that we do have a broken immigration system,
Mm-hmm.
including it being the case that even though when we were elected in 2020, and the first bill we offered Congress, before we did the bipartisan infrastructure bill, before we did the work on gun safety, before we did the work on investing in chips and science, the first bill we offered within hours of taking the oath was a bill to fix the immigration system, including creating a comprehensive, earned pathway to citizenship for hardworking people. And it was not taken up. And now we look at a situation where people are suffering. The reality is that in terms of having access to health care, had your mother been able to gain citizenship, she would have been entitled to health care that may have alleviated her suffering and yours. And this is one example of the fact that there are real people who are suffering because of an inability to put solutions in front of politics. I mean, an example of this on immigration policy is that as it relates to what we need to do to strengthen our border. A bipartisan group of members of Congress, including one of the most conservative members of the United States Senate.
And then she goes on. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to get a little bit worried because of Univision's past stuff with us on YouTube, but goes on to explain the border security bill that we've gone through so many times. And so there, genuine compassion, and then policy about the particular question that was asked, a pathway to citizenship, and then about the border security specifically. Because while that wasn't the question that was asked, it represents the second part. The first one directly answers it. But then the second one, border security, she didn't ask about border security, but it demonstrates, again, Republicans, whether it be the initial immigration reform thing that they refused to hear or more recently the border security proposal, they don't seem super interested in solving anything, just like screaming about the problem. And then also Kamala Harris is smart to know that if she talks about at all immigration without bringing up border security, Republicans are going to go crazy. So she sort of balanced a couple of things there. And then at the end, this happened.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you again.
Trump's not going to do that to the guy, I can tell you for sure. And, you know, she knows cameras are on her, all that type of stuff. But I think you can be the judge of the authenticity. I think there's some authenticity there, understanding the pain of losing a mother and then the pain of feeling that governmental policy got in the way of, or the lack of certain policies being implemented got in the way of a more correct and healthy passing or end of her mother's life. And then also weaving into that just policy. But all Trump does is just, oh, the people of Springfield. It's not at all. I don't know how MAGA doesn't see this. It's not at all representing someone who cares about doing anything to make people's lives better. Really, really sad, but a stunning contrast there between the two candidates on the same network, on a similar format, the town hall. Let me know what you thought. Support the show by getting the bonus show by clicking the join button below.